Most of our learning, we should have the basic midrash, and should be a refuah shlema for Yechiel Nassim and Sarah. I believe that you're up to the Mishnah on Chav Beis Amud Beis. Is that correct, Ibn Naftali? Let's start from there. Okay, start from the Mishnah. That's where we're supposed to be up to. Someone makes a sukkah on top of a wagon. It's called the Sukkah Mobile. This is a typical Chabad sukkah. Or he makes it on a boat. Ksheira, such a sukkah is kosher. And you're allowed to be on a wagon. And you're allowed to drive a horse and buggy. But you're allowed to go on a wagon, and especially if it's parked. And you're allowed to go on a boat. Yeah. What about on Shabbos? Is there an issue on Shabbos? Is there any difference? I don't think there's any difference. Okay. The reason why it says Va'il Nabi Yom Tov, there's really no chiddush there. There's no difference Yom Tov and Shabbos. The reason why it says it is because later on we're going to have a case where you're not allowed to go on it. That's why it says it here. Here becomes problematic. He makes a sukkah in a tree instead of a tree house, a tree sukkah. Or he makes it on a camel, the back of a camel. What was Rashi's example? He puts boards or something. There was an example, puts boards on top of two horses, and then it's later on. This example later. So such a sukkah is kosher. However, he can't go into that sukkah on Yom Tov because he can't climb a tree on Yom Tov. There's a gzeira, you may pull off a branch, and you can't go on an animal on Yom Tov either. Okay, it's also a gzeira. What happens if the sukkah was made not 100% in the tree, but it was made partially in the tree, like the way tree houses are made, as they have one side sometimes on the ground. Yeah, there's good pictures here in the book. Let's say two of the walls of the sukkah are in the tree, and one wall, so it's a three-walled sukkah, which is the usual sukkah. Two walls are in the tree, one wall is made b'dei adam. That means it's on the ground. Or two of them are b'dei adam, are made on the ground, and one is in the tree. So that's ksheira ve'ein oil Nabi Yom Tov, but you can't go into it on Yom Tov. Why? Because we're going to see soon in the Mishnah that anything that needs the tree for support is considered that it's being held by the tree. So a two-walled sukkah that you take away one wall, three-leg table, and you remove one leg that can't stand. So the same thing would apply to this. Now Rashi learns that the floor of the sukkah is in the tree. That's what Rashi says. There is another pshat. Other pshat is that the floor is the floor, and the schach is being held by the tree, and you still can't go into it on Yom Tov. Why can't you go into it on Yom Tov? You're not climbing the tree. Well, this is the pshat. This is a place for St. Shabbos that says that people used to use the tree. Just brings it over here. People used to use the schach. People used to use the schach. They would put things on the schach. They would go into the sukkah. They would put things down on the schach, like a ledge or something. So there's a concern that you may end up using the tree if you're going to go into the sukkah. Anyway, that's not the way it's explained over here. As it's quoted here, it's explained that the floor is being held by the tree. What happens if shalish b'deyadam v'achas be'ilah? This is already a different story. Three walls are made on the ground, and one wall is in the tree. That's ksheira ve'il Nabi Yom Tov. You can even go in on Yom Tov. Why? Zeh haklal. Here's the rule. Kol she'inata le'ilam yechil lamed v'nei atzma. It's ksheira ve'il Nabi Yom Tov. Here's the rule. The rule is anything that if you would remove it, it would be able to stand. So if you remove the tree, it could still stand. Then you could go into this on Yom Tov. Why does it have to tell me Zaklal? It's kind of obvious the way we could have figured that out. The reason is because it is possible that just the examples that we gave are not 100%. It is possible that I can have a two-walled sukkah that can still stand on its own. The two walls on the ground could stand on its own without the tree. The way I set up the floor and attach it with brackets and things, I could get it. I mean, there's ways of doing it. And if I didn't have the Zehaklal, then I would think that no, I'm limited to the way the Mishnah says. If the Mishnah was telling me what would be normal, two walls is going to collapse if I remove the third wall. But it is possible that it would go the other way. And the same thing is the other way. It's possible that I can have a three-walled sukkah on the ground. The fourth wall is being held by the tree, but nevertheless, if I remove the fourth wall, it collapses. Now, how did you do it? The way you did it, you did triangle, whatever. It's not strong enough. The tree is the only one that's holding it. So the Zehaklal is an important piece of the Mishnah. It tells me that it's not necessarily just because you followed the rule, the first part of the Mishnah, that automatically your sukkah is kosher or puzzle. You have to also take the logic. That's the Meiri explains it. Tell me.
It has to do with the support of it. It's not just the building code. It has to do with the emotional support.
The professor is saying it's not enough to follow the building code. You have to have the proper emotional support as well.
Things fall apart.
Right.
Foundation.
Right. Very good. The Gemara starts off, Mani Masnisin, who's the author of our Mishnah. We know who the author is of the Mishnah, Rabbi Danasi. But the way he authored the Mishnah was he collected statements that were made from different Tanoim that preceded him. So we're asking, who is the one that he collected this from? Who did he get it from? Whose opinion was this? So it's the Gemara says it's Rabbi Akiva. It's Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. I always chuckle when I read this Gemara. If someone makes a sukkah on top of a boat, okay, on the boat. So Rabbi Gamliel Paisel, Rabbi Akiva Machshir. Rabbi Gamliel says that it's possible. We had this before, where Rabbi Gamliel was put together with another 7 Tanoim that held that a sukkah needs to be dearest keva. And when you make it on a boat, that's not considered keva, according to Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Akiva said it's fine. Ma'aser Rabbi Gamliel for Rabbi Akiva sheyibayim b'svina. There's a story. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Akiva were coming on a boat. Amad Rabbi Akiva vasa sukkah b'reisha svina. Rabbi Akiva got up and he made a sukkah. L'macha the next day. Nashba ruach v'rikarta. The wind came and blew the sukkah overboard. Yeah, it doesn't say overboard, but it says it blew it over. Amalei Rabbi Gamliel says, Akiva, Echan Sukkas, where's your sukkah? You see? I mean, he knew where the sukkah was. It collapsed, but he was letting him know that, hey, where's your sukkah? So, yeah, that's what he tells him. Yeah. You think it can stand? It can't stand over here. Your sukkah's puzzle collapsed. Amar Abaya. Abaya explains this. It's not so posh. The Kuli Alma, everyone would agree. If you see the winds on the sea are stronger than the winds on the dry land, everyone would agree that if the sukkah wouldn't have been able to stand for a dry land wind over the what they call that, like continental. If it couldn't stand the regular wind, that it's going to be possible on the land. Now it turns out that the sukkah is on the sea, but if it couldn't even withstand the regular wind from the land, then your sukkah is possible. It's not a sukkah. It's
using
land criteria on the boat would be possible if it can. Let's say it could withstand the storm wind of the dry land. Now, which is probably equal to a normal wind at sea. So it could stand the normal wind at sea and a storm wind on land, very strong sukkah, hurricane proof. Everyone says that it's kosher. That's solid. Keep ligi with the lamed baruch mitziyah de abasha v'ini lamed baruch sheinu mitziyah de abasha. I read the parentheses, and then we'll take a look on the side. Here's the machlokes. If it can withstand a normal wind of the dry land, but it can't withstand a abnormal wind of Yabasha. Now let's take a look at Yabasha's dry land. Let's take a look at the note on the side. It says it's supposed to say, but it can't withstand the wind, a normal wind of the sea. Does the criteria change of the strength of the wind when you put it on the sea? Follow? You get what the question is?
But I thought the question was not just the sea, but I thought it meant somebody in the location of the boat. It's typical pictures we see this little baby of a boat where they circle on it. But imagine a massive ship or an ocean and you put the ship all the way out. The winds are much higher up on the island. So the question is whether or not you can stand the higher winds, which is not the case.
Right. Rashi does mention, Dr. Stein is saying that it was also the location on the boat that made a difference. Rashi did mention that it was put up high on the boat. But the Gemara doesn't tell me that. And the Gemara is just telling me the wind. Okay. Just want to point out something, what's happening here, is that we mentioned that there's machlekes Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Gamliel regarding a sukkah on the boat. Turns out that our Mishnah started off with Ha'isa Sukkah Bereisha Agala, Ay Bereisha Svina. It's Kshera. What the wagon? There's a wagon that got left out of this machlekes. What happened to the wagon? The Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Gamliel argue about the wagon. Definitely, Rabbi Akiva holds it's kosher. The Mishnah says it's kosher. Rabbi Akiva says on the boat it's kosher. The wagon is also kosher. Rabbi Gamliel says the boat's puzzle. What's Rabbi Gamliel's view about the wagon? It's left out over here. It doesn't. So it's a little bit unclear. We had a Tosfos before that discussed it, but it may have to do with the girsa here. When you start talking about Baruch Mitzuya de Yabasha, Ve'in Yechil Lamed Baruch Mitzuya de Yam, Rabbi Gamliel holds that it needs to be able to withstand the location as well of at sea. Maybe that Rabbi Gamliel would say that a sukkah on a wagon is kosher. The criteria changes when it's at sea. But if the other gears is I don't know if that's really going to make a difference. Okay, I tried. I thought maybe that could. Whatever the case is, let's go to the machlekes. Rabbi Gamliel Savar Sukka Diras Kevin for trying. I got to jump in for trying. Okay. Sukka Diras Keva Biman. Sukkah needs to be permanent. It needs to be practically permanent. Right now, it needs to be able to withstand a normal wind at sea. It can't withstand it. So, like Rabbi Kiva Sukkah Diras Araibinan. Sukkah doesn't need to withstand a wild wind. Now, you built a sukkah. It's considered a sukkah. It's going to blow over. When it blows over, it'll blow over. That's but meanwhile, it's kosher. That's Rabbi Akiva's view. Okay.
Because it's flimsy and you build it in a calm water on wind. It's kosher for the first day and then the normal wind comes.
No, it has to be, if it can't withstand the normal wind, even if there's no wind that day, and it stands, but it's not considered a sukkah if it wasn't able to withstand the normal wind. It has to be strong enough to be able to withstand the normal wind. And then, if it blows over from an abnormal wind, that's a different story. Okay, Ayel Gabi Gamal. we said that if he builds it on a camel, it's going to be kosher. However, you can't go onto it on Yom Tov. Would you build it on a camel? Put boards on top of the camel. It makes like a sukkah mobile. Is the sukkah? Is it going to be a triangle? It could be a triangle. Could be a triangle. But it needs to be big enough though. So we have a picture here of a sukkah on a camel. Oh, that's great. Wow. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. Yitzi's getting the sukkah this year. I would do it rather on what's those things they have for kids? The horse that it rocks. The rocking horse. Yeah, that would be more practical. Okay. Masnisin Mani. Who's the author of the Mishnah that says that it's kosher? Who holds that sukkah is kosher on a camel? It says. Yeah, well, that would go back to the wagon because the wagon shakes. So here it's another issue of the animal. It's Reb Meir. The Tanya was taught in the Brisa. If someone makes a sukkah on an animal, Rabbi Meir machshav Rabbi Yehuda paisel. Reb Meir says it's kosher. Rabbi Yehuda says it's possible. Interesting. Rabbi Meir is lenient. I wasn't expecting that. My time with the Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? Amar Kra, Rabbi Yehuda says, why is sukkah possible if you make it with an animal on an animal? It says, Chag sukkahs tascha shivas yamim sukkah riyah l'shivas l'shiva shmei sukkah sukkah shein riyah l'shiva l'shmei sukkah. There's a problem with this. You see, you made a sukkah that's only usable for Chol Hamoed because you can't go on an animal on Yom Tov. So it's a Chol Hamoed sukkah. It's like you made a sukkah in your car. You can't open the door or something. The light goes on. They probably could. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that a sukkah has to be usable for all 7 days. It's not usable for 7 days, like in this case on Yom Tov, I can't use it, so it's possible. But Meir, what does Rabbi Meir do? Rabbi Meir says that it's kosher. It says, it's not possible. You just can't go into it because the rabbis put a decree on it. It's like, it's not midaraisa, it's kosher. It's like you can't go into it because I don't know, you don't want to tear your pants while you're climbing it. It doesn't affect the sukkah. The sukkah's a good sukkah. You're not going to go into it because someone's holding you back. The rabbis are holding you back, but it doesn't change the sukkah. The sukkah is midaraisa. It's a good sukkah for all 7 days. And it's midaraisa. You can go on the animal. It's only the rabbis that tell you not to. As a decree. Okay. Also, the behema doifen l'sukkah. The Gemara has a new story up here. Let's say you used an animal as the wall of your sukkah. What type of animal? You're gonna have an elephant coming out, but yeah, a cow. Something. Yeah, you put something over there. The cows they go into these things when they're going to milk them, or they're held in place. So what happens about this animal? Reb Meir paisel Rabbi Yehuda machshav. Reb Meir is machmer. That's more what I was expecting. Reb Meir is always, overall, Reb Meir is more machmer than the others. Because he's chayish l'miyuta, he suspects the things that other people say, don't worry about them. So Reb Meir says it's possible, Reb Yehuda says it's kosher. So how Reb Meir Eimer, because Reb Meir would say, Kol davar sheish bei ruach hayim, I say leidefen l'sukkah v'leilechi l'mavi v'leipasan l'birois v'leigel l'kever. Reb Meir says, look at all the things an animal is not good for. You can't use it as a sukkah wall. You can't use it as a lechi. A lechi is a post by the end of an alleyway. You can't use it as a post to be able to carry on Shabbos. You can't use it as pasi birois. Pasi birois with the corners around the well, where if I had the size of a tefa, not a tefa, and by a sukkah was the size of a tefa. By a Shabbos it was an amma. If it was an amma, So then an amma by an amma, which you could probably get in an animal. The animal would be, you just tie the animal over there. It would be an amma by an amma. So that could be considered the corners around the well and would allow you to take the water out on Shabbos to feed the animal if you have animals there anyway. So this one will be tied up. No, it's not good. What else? Special halachas about a grave stone, not the matzeva, but they used to have a stone that would cover the hole of the cave. They would put the body in like a groove inside the cave. What's it called? Crypt. And then they would put a stone there. So the stone had an extra severe tumah. Yeah, like the mace. Yeah, and it was matama. That stone was even matama ba'oil. Usually things that are tummy mace are not matama ba'oil. Only the mace itself is matama ba'oil. The goylel, the stone that covers the grave, is also matama ba'oil. Because if you're under the same roof as it, makes the person tummy extra chumrah. So Rav Meir says, but it doesn't apply if an animal is there covering the opening of the cave. Mishum Rabbi Yossi Glili, Amrapin Kaisim of Giti Nashim. Rabbi Yossi Glili says you can't write again on it either. The Gemara will explain later why not on the animal. No, in general. Like people write on their in class. My students, they write on their hands. So you can't write a get. Let's say they wanted to write a get. They can't write it on their dog. Okay. My time at the Reb Meir, what's the reason for Reb Meir for being machmer? He doesn't allow animals to be used for these things. So it's a machlekes Abai and Reb Zera. Abai is younger than Reb Zera. Yeah, so Abai is here, and Reb Zera should be somewhere near Rabbah. Yeah, I don't know why Reb Zera is not on this chart. Oh, because they put Reb Zera in Eretz Yisrael. Reb Zera ended up in Eretz Yisrael if you have the chart. Because Reb Zera moved to Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, he got called over there. He was called Reb Zera, I think. Okay, so there's a machlekes. What's the reason for Reb Meir? Abaya says Shema Tamas. Where Reb Meir is concerned the animal's going to die. What happens when the animal dies? Well, it collapses, and then there's no wall. So Reb Meir says that's not a good wall. You never know when it's going to drop dead. That's Abaya. Reb Zera Mishem Tivra. Reb Zera says maybe it's going to run away. Same problem. You don't have a wall, right? The animal's going to disappear. Okay. The Gemara explains like this: Bipil kosher kuli amalei pligi. Then it's not a problem. It's kosher without it. Yeah. Bipil kosher kuli amalei pligi. If I have an elephant that's tied, so everyone would agree. Interesting. They say with the elephants that they tie it as when it's a baby, they put something on it. Even though when it's older, it could knock it over, but it was trained not to move, that it can't move it. It's tied, it actually stays there. You can tie an elephant, it will stay there. I hear. People learn things. Yeah. Right. Okay. So if it's an elephant that's died, what's going to happen if it's going to die? If it dies, yeah, it collapses. But even when an elephant collapses, it still has 10 tvachim. You still have a wall. So it's not running away. And when it dies, it's not a problem. So everyone agrees that such a wall would be fine. Yeah, if you want to make an exotic sukkah. Keep pligi, bipil she'ena kasher. Problem is, where would the machlekes be if you have an elephant that's not tied? According to the opinion that says, well, maybe it's going to die. Well, so what if it dies? Even play it out. Okay, so it died. My sukkah is still kosher, so he's not going to have any concern. Oh, there's no problem with him. It's just the wall. The sukkah wall could be tough. Yeah. No. Maybe it's fine. It's just an avela. Yeah, that was a problem of tumah, but that doesn't invalidate the sukkah. Sukkah's kosher. The tumah would spread, yeah. So lamandam exir shemativrach. But according to the opinion that the elephant may run away, well, you have an elephant that could run away. It's not tied. So then cheshina. The Gemara has a question. Lamandam exir shematamas. According to Abaya, that says that your mayor is concerned about the animal dying. So in this case, he's going to say that it's going to be kosher because we're dealing with an elephant, that even if it's dead, it's still 10 tvachim. So necha shemativrach. But it's not tied. Why is he saying that it would be kosher in such a case? Whatever we're saying. Rameir usually is concerned. What would that mean? That if it's not a problem of it dying, it would be kosher. But why would it be kosher? It could run away. He's totally ignoring the practicality of this. That if you have an animal that's not tied, it could run away. The Gemara says, "El bepil she'ena kosher." Rather, a pill that's not tied, kuli amalei pligi. Everyone agrees that it's not going to be good because it could run away. That's not the machlekes. Ki pligi bebehema kshura. Machlekes is the opposite. When I have an animal that is tied, lamandam exer shematamas. According to the opinion that says, well, it may die. So then, Kashinan, I have a problem. Could be it's going to die and fall. I know it's tied, but so what? It's going to fall. Yeah. Yitzi suggesting that the people that are doing this are not married. Right. Yeah. You're suggesting it's after Bruri had passed away. Okay. So when the animal dies, it's going to collapse. But it can't run away. It sounds like it should be okay according to Reb Zera, because it's tied. It's not a problem. No. If it dies, it can't run away. Granted, but if it's tied, it also can't run away. So therefore, it's going to be kosher. But if it dies, it can't. This mandama, this opinion, was only concerned about it running away. So once you tie it up, it's kosher. It's not. Yeah, Dr. Stein is talking about tie-dyed. Okay. We ask a question like this. The one that says, Reb Zera, that says that maybe it's going to run away, why isn't he concerned that it's going to die? I mean, animals do die. So the practicality is that it may not be a good wall because it could die. So the answer to that is death is not so common. How often do they die? Only once. But to run away is all the time. So, okay. The Gemara now presents another question, which is going to mess things up for us. It says, there's a problem, because between the legs of the animal is a gap. And that gap is probably 3 tvachim from the ground. We said that the wall of the sukkah needs to reach the ground. What about the gap between the legs? There's a big space there, and it's not considered solid with the ground. The Gemara said, he made some sort of fence that could fit between the legs, a wicker fence you filled it in so that it's considered a wall. The Gemara says, V'dilma Rava, maybe it's going to sit down and crush it. And then where's your wall? I mean, it's sitting down, then you have to measure the top of it. Right? So the Gemara answers the meticha b'ashnim milel. We're talking about that you tied it from the ceiling, and so therefore it can't crush the wall. No, it's not actually the support for the schach. It's just used as a wall. The schach I have supported because I have a frame. And now the Gemara says, if that's the case, then look at what's going on. You said that there's a problem if it dies. One opinion says if it dies, that's what we're concerned about. But you also said that there's a problem that between the legs there's a gap, too much space. So how do we resolve the gap problem? We put a wall there. But then we have another problem. And maybe it's going to sit down. How do we resolve that problem? You tie it. You tie it from the roof. So go back to the first problem. First problem was it's going to die and collapse. But if it's tied from the roof, even if it dies, it's not going to collapse. So we got ourselves into a mess trying to explain how is there really a concern here? It's possible that initially you tied it up, it was within 3 tefachim from the schach, and the animal was 7 tefachim, so 7 plus, 7 in the trap, so which made a total of 10 tefachim. Our concern is that maybe it's going to die. When it dies, it's going to slouch and droop, and then it's going to go under 3 tefachim, and it's not going to be considered a 10 tefachim sukkah, 10 tefachim wall. Okay, now the Gemara has a question. Yeah, but you tied it in the middle, it slouched down. So, yeah. We said that Reb Meir is chayesh l'misa. Reb Meir's concerned that the animal could die. That's our concern. That's why you can't use an animal. The Gemara says, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda is loy chayesh. Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about the animal dying. It's not chayesh for the animal dying, or possibly even not for running away. But he's also not chayesh. He doesn't suspect that the animal's going to die. Is that true? And does Abayas, it was Abaya that was suggesting that Reb Meir is the one that holds that the animal could die, and Rabbi Yehuda says, no, don't worry about that. Yeah. Tomorrow we'll learn that this clearly contradicts the statement of Rabbi Yehuda that we learned in Yuma, on the first page of Yuma, where Rabbi Yehuda was concerned that the Kohen Gadol's wife may die. And now we're saying that the Rabbi Yehuda holds that you don't suspect that an animal is going to die, and you can use it as a wall.
Is there a shir on Shabbos? Is there a shir on Shabbos?
No. What did I say? Why did I say?
You said tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said tomorrow. Didn't mean tomorrow. I meant tomorrow's Daf. Okay, sorry. Okay, I don't even know what day it is. I didn't tell you about the trip. It's yesterday.
Question.
Yeah.
In the times of the Mishnah, were these practical questions? Do you know about using animals as walls? Yeah. I
think so. I know even in camps where they have Erevin and things, that everyone is interacting with, they have shilas like this, the Erev collapse. Can they put an animal there and then get a guy to go fix it while the animal is standing there, so it won't be considered that, it's just to carry one thing? And it's practical. I mean, we're in the city, so we don't think about this, but it's that's why there's so many gemaras about animals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay. The problem is that we have a Mishnah that says that different. It's not a Mishnah. It's a comment of Abaya that says different. But the Mishnah says like this: Bas Yisrael shenissus l'kayin. Let's say you have a Jewish girl. She's married to a kayin. Now she's allowed to eat truma, even though she's not a kohenes. But because of her husband, she can eat truma. If her husband dies and they don't have children, so then she cannot eat truma. So the husband went on a business trip, went to a faraway place. I added in the business part. I don't know. She can continue to eat truma. Yeah, probably is still alive. But the problem is we have a question. Let's say the husband has a young brother. They don't have children. And he's afraid that he's going to die. And if he dies, the wife is going to have to wait till this young boy is old enough to do chalitza. So that could be 13 years. So he doesn't want her to go through that. So he writes her a get. And he says that the get should take effect right before I die. That's his statement there. Now, Asura lechol b'truma miyad. She right away can't eat truma because the get could be taking effect at any moment. Because who's to say what's going to happen? Something from some crazy accident could happen, and every moment could be the get taking effect because it's a moment before whatever crazy accident could. Okay, so there's a problem because we have a contradiction. On one hand, when someone goes to a faraway country, you say let her eat truma. Why? He's still alive. On the other hand, when he gives a get and he says it should take effect right before he dies, she has to stop. Why? Because we suspect that he's going to die. So what's going on? You suspect that he's going to die or not? By the truma, you said no. Oh, he was alive before. He's going to live forever. And over here we say that's not a good. It's not a good chazaka. Amar Abaya. Abaya says like kasha. Harab Meir the lechayish lemisa. Rab Yehuda the chayish lemisa. It's a machlekes Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda. And look at what Abaya says. Who holds that the lechayish lemisa is Rab Meir? And Rab Yehuda says it's chayish lemisa. It's exactly the opposite. By us, we said that you can't use any animal, according to Rab Meir, it's going to die. Rab Yehuda says, don't worry about it. It's not going to die. It's fine. Comes to the person, and we say Rab Yehuda holds that he's going to die. And Rab Meir says, don't worry, he's going to be fine. You don't subscribe. Yeah, the professor is suggesting that there's a difference between an animal and a person. Yeah. The Gemara is like a biologist. The Tanya. Okay, let's see. The Tanya. What's a biased source for this? It says if someone buys wine from a kuti. A kuti is worse than an amaretz. An amaretz was suspected that he didn't take meiser, but we knew he took truma. By the kuti, we don't think he even took truma. Okay. So someone buys wine from a kuti. Oimer, he says, Shnei lugim shani yasad lahafir sharei and shumas, harei and shuma. I will separate 2 portions of this to be truma, which is the average for truma, 2 out of 100. 2 out of 100. Truma is trei mimeya. Trei is 2. In Aramaic, it's 2. I know in Latin it's 3. But truma, 2 out of 100. Asara, 10 portions is Meiser Rishon. That's going to be Meiser. That's what I give to the poor. Meiser Rishon, I'm sorry, goes to the Levi. Meiser Rishon goes to Meiser Hanias to the poor, which is not every year. Meiser Rishon is to the Levi. Tisha, 9 portions is Meiser Sheni. Is going to be when I'll take to Eretz Yisrael. I'll take to Yerushalayim rather. And then he right away redeems the Meiser Sheni and he can start drinking. Now, there's a little bit of a problem here. But that's Reb Meir, but Meir's opinion. problem is that he didn't separate the truma yet. He's drinking from this barrel, and he's saying that at the end, don't worry, I'll do it later. It's in there. There's in this barrel. There's a portion in there that'll be truma. Before I get to the bottom, I'll stop drinking and I'll give it over. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Eisen. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Shimon say, no, you can't do that. They're concerned that after you drank everything that you wanted, the barrel's going to burst and the wine's going to spill and you'll be left without having given your truma. What do you see? That Rabbi Yehuda is concerned to something plotting, bursting. That means Rabbi Yehuda is chayesh lemisa on a barrel. We talk about the animals are different than humans. Now we're comparing animals, humans to barrels. That if the barrel is going to, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is going to burst, then that means that he also suspects that people could just die. And the opposite would be Reb Meir. Reb Meir says, no, barrels don't burst, and people don't die until they do. And the same with the animals. Well, the animals is going to be a problem. That's what we're asking. We're asking that Reb Meir held that animals do die. That's the contradiction. The Gemara says to resolve this, it says Epa. What Abaya told you, that Reb Meir is not chayesh lemisa. Reb Yehuda is chayesh lemisa. Switch it around. Reb Meir chayesh lemisa. It's exactly the opposite, and this resolves our contradiction with the animals. And Reb Yehuda le chayesh lemisa. The Tanya was taught in a brayso. Asala behem aday from the sukkah. Reb Meir paisa. Reb Yehuda match. You see, it's really the other way. We had a contradiction between two braysos. A woman whose husband went on a trip. We say that her husband's alive. We had the other brayso that says that this is. The woman says, this is your get until a moment before he passes away. That this is at the moment before he passes away, the get should take effect. So we said over there that it's a get, considered a get immediately. She can't have truma. So that's a contradiction. So we resolved it by saying one is Reb Meir's opinion, one is Reb Yehuda's opinion. So we created a contradiction by saying which opinion we thought would be Reb Meir's and which one based on a barrel of wine. Where it says no, we'll deal with the barrel of wine soon. But first, Reb Meir is actually the one. We'll resolve the contradiction by saying that it's a machlekes. But don't make it a problematic for the Hilchas Sukkah. We'll say that Reb Meir is the one that holds that we're chayesh lemisa, and he's the one that says that the woman can't drink wine. Can't have the truma. And it would also hold that you can't use an animal as a wall because it could die. And Rabbi Yehuda was the other way. Rabbi Yehuda says that the husband is still alive and the woman can still have the truma, and an animal could also be used as a wall, and that's going to fit. Now we have to figure out how to deal with the barrel, because the barrel contradicts everything that we're saying. That's what we'll deal with on Sunday. That's just a sham. Okay.